Hello everybody, and welcome back to Season 5 of From the Rafters of Rupp, the Kentucky Legends Edition. I'm Kyle Macy. In previous seasons, we've featured many of the outstanding individuals who've helped establish the great tradition that is Kentucky basketball. All of these gifted Kentucky icons have been honored with the ceremonial hanging of their Wildcat jersey in the Rafters of Rupp Arena. This season, I'm interviewing 5 former players who I believe are prime candidates to have their jersey raised to the Rafters of Rupp in the near future. So we invite you to sit back and enjoy this edition of From the Rafters of Rupp, the Kentucky Legends Edition. From 1970 to 1973, Jim Andrews enjoyed a phenomenal career at UK, and in my opinion is one of the most underrated players to ever wear the Kentucky blue and white. At 6'11", Jim was a 2-year starter in the middle for the Cats. His 1,320 points scored placed him at number 12 on the Kentucky all-time career scoring list upon his graduation. Jim has the distinction of playing for Adolph Rupp's last team at Kentucky, and in 1973 was also a member of Coach Joe B. Hall's first team at Kentucky. Jim and I began our conversation discussing at what age he recalls getting involved in the game of basketball.
I actually call West Virginia home. It's where my family is from, and we moved around a lot. My parents were divorced when I was in the 5th grade. I went to 6 different elementary schools. I went to 3 different high schools and had 4 different high school basketball coaches, but I finished up my senior year in Lima, and that's where Coach Hall had recruited me.
In 1968, Joe Hall was Adolph Rupp's lead recruiter. Jim shared with me how UK first learned about the high-scoring senior prospect from Lima, Ohio.
And Coach had this kid, in Findlay, Ohio, that he was interested in. And he'd had some success in the Dayton area with Mike Pratt and Bob McCowan and some other players. So Coach is on the way to Findlay. He happens to stop in Lima because he said, look, it's going to be 1 o'clock in the morning before I get back through here. Won't be any gas stations open. So he stopped to get a tank of gas. Struck up a conversation back when they had somebody to pump it for you. And this conversation kind of went, well, have you got any ball players around here? And he said, yeah, there's a kid who moved from Michigan. He said he's averaging about 36 points a game and about 22 rebounds. Huh, is that right? I said, yeah, in fact, they're playing right down this road today. Coach said, well, maybe I better go over there. So he came over, watched me play, and never went to Findlay.
Coach Hall sold Jim on the Kentucky basketball program and the benefits of competing in the tough Southeastern Conference. Jim actually signed with the Cats in the spring of 1969 without ever having met his future head coach.
I never met Coach Rupp until I actually met him on the phone. It was the first time when I got a letter of intent, they called him. And I signed my letter, and Coach Hall picked up the phone and called Coach Rupp, and he said, well, thank you for coming to Kentucky. And that was the first time. And then on the phone, dumb high school kid, I said, well, Coach, will you come speak at our high school banquet? And he did. He flew in with a guy named John Waits and comes in and gives his little talk and started out by saying, well, I'm glad I'm here because if I wasn't here, I'd be somewhere else. And so I brought the house down. He talked for a few minutes and was out, and that was the first time I met Coach Rupp.
In the fall of 1969, in his first year on campus, Jim's game improved on every level. Of course, it certainly helped that he battled against UK All-American Dan Issel every day in practice.
Coach Rupp's practices were exactly the same for the first 30 to 45 minutes. Went through the same drills, the same skill sets. And then after that, there would be some kind of scrimmage, or we would do maybe run plays for other plays. So we were the dummies. We would come in and play against them. Why he didn't use the other team much, the second team, I don't know, but he used the freshmen a lot. So after that was over, then we'd have to practice with Coach Hall, and sometimes that was a 2 or 3 hour practice. So it was hard to gain weight during that period of time because we came in at 3, and sometimes it was 7, 8 o'clock, and the cafeterias were already closed, and there was nothing to eat, and or you didn't even feel like eating most of the time.
We'll be right back with more of my conversation with Jim Andrews after these words from our sponsors.
It's pizza that's made to order, the way we like it, and their wings and their wing bites taste great. Hey, save me some. Oh, that's good. Oh, that's great.
Practice your shot in our indoor, temperature-controlled shooting range or work with one of our experts to choose the right firearm for your next outdoor experience. Bud's Gun Shop and Range. Find it here.
In the 1970-71 season, Jim Andrews played in the backup role to 7'1" starting center Tom Payne. As a sophomore, Jim made the most of his playing opportunities, scoring in double figures on 6 different occasions. He tossed in a season-high 19 against Oregon State on 7 of 12 shooting from the floor.
Yeah, in fact, they used to joke that when I would come into the ball game, I'd play 5 or 6 minutes, was fairly typical for Coach Rupp. And I was averaging about a point a minute, and people would just say, well, if he played 40 minutes, he'd have 40 points, those kind of deals. But I always took advantage of my opportunities. And if you'll look down on that, you'll see there was an Alabama game where I got to start. Tom had been sick, who knows why, but he was sick. And Coach Rupp decided to start me, and I think I forget how many points I had in that ball game, but it was something like 14, 15 points in that first half, and then didn't play the second half at all.
The Cats finished the 70-71 regular season with a 22-4 record and won the Southeastern Conference title. Ranked 8th in the country, Kentucky entered the first-round NCAA contest with the number 7th-ranked Western Kentucky Hilltoppers in a tense rivalry game played in Athens, Georgia.
There was no doubt that Western had a really good ball club, but a couple things in that ball game that happened. As we got down, and Tom was having a very difficult time guarding Jim McDaniel, Coach Hall said, look, we got to make some kind of a change. So we had 3 players come in, Bob McCown, Ken Hollenbach, and myself. And so we came in and replaced the other players. And we got the game down to about 7 or 8 points, and we thought sure that would give us a chance to get back into the ball game. None of us played another minute the rest of the ball game.
The Cats struggled to contain Hilltopper leading scorers Jim McDaniels, Jim Rose, and Clarence Glover, and lost to Western 107-83. Jim reflects on some of the chaos that surrounded the heated in-state matchup.
Coach Catlett was Coach Rupp's pick to take over. And for whatever reason, I don't know if it was some ego involved that he didn't have any say-so in who was going to replace him or what was going on. But Coach Catlett came in, and he had the scouting report, and he pointed out, he said, Clarence Glover cannot shoot the basketball at all. He said, if he is above the broken line, you let him shoot. So anytime he was up around the free throw line, we just backed off of him. That's what we were told to do. Well, Clarence wound up making about 5 or 6 shots in the first half. So at halftime, Coach Rupp and Coach Catlett made the comment that every point that Glover scores from there is on the coaching staff. So at halftime, Coach Rupp said, I think that's enough points on the coaching staff. Somebody's got to guard that boy.
The loss to Western was tough on the UK fan base and was especially hard on the UK players. There were a lot of uncertainties surrounding the Kentucky program at the time, and as Jim recalls, there were a number of social issues and national controversies that filled the daily news headlines as well.
Kyle, the things that were going on in the South, the SEC was being integrated. Day laws that existed in Mississippi and in Louisiana and Alabama, the whole issues with George Wallace and all that stuff that was going on, that was happening, and it affected the team so that we'd go into Mississippi. And the things that were being said to Tom Payne or to Reggie Warford or to Darrell and Elmore didn't care. I mean, they'd kick your butt in 5 seconds, but they were kind of used to it because a lot of the integration in football had already happened. But we were just going through it in basketball. And I've got to say I'm very proud of having been part of that because the acceptance of those players were as players, not because they were black, but because they knew how to play basketball. In fact, somebody asked about Coach Rupp and whether he was racist or not, and the only thing he hated is if you couldn't play basketball, he hated you. And he didn't care if you were black or white or what you were, but he would tell you, up front, if you couldn't play, I didn't want you on my team.
In 1972, Kentucky returned seniors Tom Parker, Stan Key, and Ken Hollenbeck. The Cats would need a strong presence in the middle if UK hoped to claim its 5th consecutive SEC title. Tom Payne's decision to turn pro following the 70-71 season created an opportunity for Jim Andrews to be that man in the middle.
Tom had a lot of potential. He didn't start playing until very late in high school. In fact, he may have even been in the 10th or 11th grade before he really became serious about it. But he had all the physical tools. I mean, he was 7'1", every bit of it. He weighed close to 300 pounds. He was a Shaq before Shaq was ever known. And Tom could have been just a great pro player, but there were a lot of distractions in Tom's life that got him in a lot of trouble.
We'll return with more of my conversation with Jim Andrews after these words from our sponsors.
Kentucky Farm Bureau Insurance. Big on commitment.
Fueling Kentucky. Fueling America. Fueling growth. Friends of Coal.
Kentucky defeated Northwestern 94-85 in the opening game of the 1971-72 season at Memorial Coliseum. Andrews pumped in a game-high 37 points for the Cats and pulled down 13 rebounds. It'd be the first of 19 double-doubles for the junior center that season.
I always felt, even from that game, I felt I had the ability to do those kinds of things. Was I going to be another Dan Issel? No, but I wanted to be a close second. And the thing I remember about that whole year, it was kind of the farewell Coach Rupp tour. So we played teams like Kansas and Kansas State because that's where he had been, and we dedicated a lot of coliseums and arenas. It's like when we played West Virginia, they waited to dedicate the new facility at West Virginia until Coach Rupp could come in and kind of bless the thing. Bobby Knight did the same thing up at Indiana, as that he wanted Coach Rupp there to kind of bless Memorial.
The Cats entered the last game of the 1972 regular season with a 19-6 record and tied for the conference lead. The road trip to rival Tennessee would not only determine the SEC champion, but would also decide who would represent the Southeastern Conference in the NCAA tournament.
You have to remember that whoever won the conference championship got the NCAA bid. There were no at-large bids at the time, so we had to win that ball game in order to go to the NCAA. Because if we had split, I forget how it was going to work out, but it was going to be some way, I think mathematically, that Tennessee winds up winning the conference. I think that was correct.
The Cats beat Tennessee 67-66, and Jim posted 20 points on the night, making 8 of his 12 shooting attempts from the floor. The 1-point victory advanced Kentucky into the NCAA tournament, where the Cats pounded first-round opponent number 7 Marquette 85-69. Kentucky then faced 10th-ranked Florida State, coached by Louisville native Hugh Durham, in the finals of the Mideast Regional in Dayton, Ohio.
You and I are really good friends, and he comes to Children's Charity every year, and I'm kind of like his little chauffeur, and we just talk about different games, and we talked about that game in depth, and he said our strategy in that ball game was to make sure that we could get past your point guard, Ronnie Lyons. He said if we felt that we could break him down, then we could get to the ball at the corner to Ron King. And Ron King, I think he had over 30 points. And there were almost all of them from Petty going around Ronnie Lyons, around the free throw line, and then kicking it to the corner. And Ron just didn't miss.
The 73-54 loss to Florida State was Coach Rupp's last game on the sidelines as a University of Kentucky head coach. Jim led the team in scoring his junior year, averaging 21.5 points per game, and led the team in rebounds with just over 11 per game. But despite being the team leader in both categories, it was Tom Parker who was named SEC Player of the Year. With Joe B. Hall stepping in to take over the coaching reins, Jim shares his thoughts on returning for his senior year at Kentucky.
Yeah, it felt real good. And then with Coach Rupp retiring, spent a lot of time with Coach Hall on what I needed to do for that next year for us to be successful, because that freshman team was coming in. They were going to be very inexperienced. And Coach Hall and I had a lot of conversations about what had to happen that next year to be successful for him.
Jim and I discussed the transition from Coach Adolph Rupp to Coach Joe B. Hall.
Coach Hall was very much a technician, I guess is the best way to describe him. He understood that teaching fundamentals, footwork, and those kinds of things. Coach Rupp was like, I need you to get from there to there. I don't care how you do it, just do it. And Coach Hall was more like, there's a more efficient way. And then with the conditioning program we had, Coach Hall was able then to step it up a little bit, and weights were added, heavy weights were added, and strength became a key to what he felt his program was going to make him successful.
We'll return with more of my conversation with Jim Andrews after these words from our sponsors.
Fresh, tasty, savory double dogs. In a single word, delicious.
We are the hospital to meet the healthcare needs of the Commonwealth. The best in Kentucky, the best for Kentucky. UK Healthcare, the power of advanced medicine.
In Joe Hall's first season as the Kentucky head coach, the Cats welcomed the services of the vaulted Super Kittens class. Sophomores Greavy, Connor, Flynn, Guyette, Lockmuir, Smith, and Hale were now eligible to compete at the varsity level. But as Jim explains, incorporating the young guns into the Kentucky lineup didn't go as smoothly as initially planned.
Those sophomores were like today's freshmen. I mean, they just didn't have that type of experience to draw upon. And there were so many of them. There were 7 of them. And so we all knew, the upperclassmen, me included, Coach Hall certainly knew, that it was not going to be that easy, that we were going to have some very tough early games.
The Cats suffered through a rough start to the 72-73 season. An early season losing streak saw the Cats drop 3 games in a row before Christmas. The last one, a 78-70 loss to North Carolina in Freedom Hall. Jim remembers being frustrated. He wasn't the only one.
I lost it in that game because we weren't attacking the basket. There were a lot of little, what I just would call freshman mistakes today, but the sophomores just didn't know what to do and how to win the ball game. And it was very frustrating because I was having a pretty good ball game, and I just couldn't get them to throw me the ball. And I could remember being very angry and very vocal afterwards. And there was a day or two after that, and I didn't know this, but within Memorial Coliseum, all the ventilation systems were connected. So anything that we said in the locker room, Coach Hall could hear in his locker room. And I didn't find this out until later. But Jimmy Dan decided to call a team meeting. So he comes in talking about all the stuff we want to do. Of course, Coach Hall, we don't know. He's overhearing us. He comes in to the locker room, and he goes, just what is going on here? And Jimmy Dan said, well, we're having a team meeting. A team meeting, huh? He said, you're having a team meeting without your coach? He said, I want you to know that I am the coach of this team, and there is no team meeting. It's a dictatorship, and you will do what I tell you to do. So the team meeting was over after that.
Kentucky managed to get its season back on track. Jim once again led the team in scoring, averaging over 20 points per game during his senior year. The Cats finished 14-4 in conference play and once again captured the SEC crown. Kentucky entered the NCAA tournament ranked 19th in the nation and defeated a Fly Williams-led Austin Peay team 106-100 in overtime to advance to the finals of the Mideast Regional. There, in the Elite Eight, the Cats would fall to number 6 ranked Indiana 72-65.
And that happened to us in the next ball game when we played IU. We lost that ball game by 7. And the thing that sticks out in my mind to this day was the last 3-4 shots that were taken, and they almost all of them were layups. If we had made any one of those shots, any one of them, we'd have been in the Final Four playing UCLA the next ball game.
Jim was named the first team All-SEC team for the second year in a row. He led the team in scoring and rebounding for the second year in a row. However, it was super sophomore Kevin Greavy who garnered the most votes for SEC Player of the Year. Overlooked again, Jim found comfort in his ability to perform at the level of expectations that Coach Joby Hall had set for him.
And he would say, Jim, this is what we got to have from you in order to win this ball game. And it was always something like, I need 25 points and 15 rebounds, or I need, or he would tell me sometimes, I don't need 25 out of you this time, but I do need to have the rebounds. And so it was always consistent that do it. And other than maybe one or twice that over those years, him taking me off to the side, that I didn't do what he asked me to do.
Jim participated in 2 Mideast Regional Finals in his time at UK and captured 3 SEC titles. One of his best memories at UK was capturing the now famous painting housed at the Naismith Basketball Hall of Fame.
Larry Frost made a painting of that. There was a huddle where we got together, and Coach Rupp is pointing, and as I recall, Stan Key, we were going to run this play called a 6, and Stan Key was to come off of it, and there was supposed to be a pick, and I think Parker was supposed to get the shot. And he got covered. They saw it coming and got covered. And I was on the baseline, and my player actually stepped up into the lane for whatever reason. And I think it was Kosmowski that did that. But anyhow, Key had no choice but to go up for the shot at that time, saw me on the baseline. And I had a little 6-8 footer from the baseline, and I made it.
It was obvious in talking with Jim that he treasures the lasting friendships he made while at UK. He's remained in the Lexington area and continues to follow the UK program as a proud member of the Big Blue Nation.
I've traveled around the country. When I was working for a company out of Cincinnati, traveled all of North America, and I've been in a lot of cities, a lot of college towns, and there's nothing like the University of Kentucky. And to be able to today to go through Myers or someplace and have people stop you and say, I remember when you played, it's still very satisfying.
Jim Andrews was named to the NCAA All-Mideast Regional Team in both his junior and senior years. He's a 2-time All-SEC selection. In his 3 years at Kentucky, he shot 56.2% from the field. Jim posted an amazing 43 double-doubles in his career at UK, second only to Kentucky great Dan Issel. Andrews is listed among the top 30 scorers in Kentucky basketball history and is among the top 15 in the Kentucky career rebounding list. Jim Andrews' individual stats and his team accomplishments while at Kentucky are exceptional. His scoring, rebounding, 2 Final 8 appearances, and 3 SEC titles are worthy of so much more recognition than he's received over the years. Let's hope this review of Jim Andrews' achievements on the court helps bring well-deserved attention to his outstanding career in a Kentucky uniform. Thanks for joining us, everybody. Until next time, when we hear more tales from the Rafters of Rupp.
From the Rafters of Rupp was brought to you by UK Healthcare, Bud's Gun Shop, Double Dogs, Friends of Coal, Hunt Brothers Pizza, Kentucky Farm Bureau, and by Rafferty's.